More than 3.5 hours were spent discussing the security issue in Ukraine. This Ukrainian Day, as it was called by journalists, was held for the first time this year.
The initiator of the UN Security Council session dedicated to the current situation in Ukraine was Poland, which started its presidency of the UN Security Council in May. In his speech, Polish Foreign Minister Jacek Czaputowicz directly called Russia an aggressor and an occupying state.
The United Nations Security Council has a role to play here too. The ongoing violence in eastern Ukraine and the illegal annexation of Crimean Peninsula remains one of the greatest sources of instability in the entire region. The Security Council should contribute to easing of the tensions on the ground and working out a solution to the Ukrainian issue, including through establishing a peacekeeping mission.
Before the meeting, Dutch representative to the UN made a statement saying that the conflict in Ukraine violates all principles of international law. He mentioned the annexation of Crimea and the Malaysian Boeing MH17 shot down by a Russian missile system. The Netherlands called on Russia to recognize its responsibility and cooperate with the criminal investigation.
We call upon Russia to engage constructively with us in this matter and to accept its responsibility. In parallel to this, we call upon the Russian Federation to cooperate fully and constructively with the criminal investigation.
Ukraine's Foreign Minister Pavlo Klimkin started his speech showing a photo of a 15-year-old girl killed in her front yard in eastern Ukraine as a result of mortar fire supplied to hybrid forces in the Donbass by Moscow.
Violence continues to ravage Donbass. The conflict left 4.4 million people in a very dire humanitarian situation, and the humanitarian cost continues to mount. People lack access to all basic services and goods, and critical water, electricity, everything, transport infrastructure is being destroyed. The same goes for health facilities.
In her report, U.S. Representative to the UN Nikki Haley made it clear that the United States wants Russia to admit guilt for the downed Boeing passenger plane and the development of illegally armed formations in eastern Ukraine.
We condemn in the strongest terms Russia's involvement in eastern Ukraine and its purported annexation of Crimea. Until Russia returns the Crimean Peninsula to Ukrainian control, U.S. sanctions related to the invasion of Crimea will continue.
Russian permanent representative to the UN Vasily Nebenzia took to the floor twice. At first, he accused all those sitting in the session hall of poor awareness of the current situation. According to the Russian representative, the whole truth is allegedly known only to him. You, dear friends, are in deep informational self-isolation from what is happening in Ukraine. You use cliches of the Western media and the theses of your Ukrainian colleagues. Later, the Russian representative stated that Ukraine also accuses Russia of the assassination of Russian journalist Arkady Babchenko, whose death became known only a few hours before the meeting. It is possible to assume that the Ukrainian authorities will accuse Russia. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Pavlo Klimkin called all the statements made by the Russian representative predictable. The Russian government said that they themselves will be blamed from the beginning. This was 100% prepared, just like all the other theses. I believe that this isn't random, but we will wait for the results of the investigations, because we are a right government, unlike Russia. And of course, only when we receive the evidence, we will have the full picture. The session of the UN Security Council has been closed, but it was promised that the question of Ukraine's security will be brought up again. Poland's foreign minister called for appointing a special representative of the United Nations in Ukraine in the nearest future.